I have a website, and on my website, I write my blog every Sunday and Wednesday. I put up a new blog. And oftentimes this past year, I mentioned in my blog what was going on with the water situation here in Southern California, because we've been under a drought condition for 5 years, and it was getting pretty bad. I'll give you an example. This is a report from the internet of a local reservoir, and I have to qualify that. It is, quote unquote, our local reservoir. I'm pointing because the mountains are over there, and just other side of the mountains is where this lake is. But we don't get our water out of that lake. It's part of some sort of California water transit system. The water, some of it goes to local farmers, and some of it somehow gets down south to where they need it more down south. Our water comes from aquifer. We have underground water here, and that's where all of our water is coming from. It's supplying all of our needs, but we're still under water conservation rules. I'll get to those in a minute. But this is how bad the situation was in that lake. This is from October, middle of October, October 14th. The lake was at 7.3% capacity. In other words, it was nearly 95% empty. That's how bad the lake was. We've had more rain than usual this year. In fact, this report, I printed this report yesterday. And according to this report, we've had enough rain during the winter that we are currently at 145% of our normal to date rain as of this end of this month. This is March 31st. That's how much it's rained. We're nearly 1.5 times normal. But still, with all that extra rain, the lake is currently at 50.3% capacity. So whether you want to think of it as half empty or half full, it's still got a long ways to go. But again, it's not our water. We get our water underground. I don't know what the water situation is, how much water is down there. I don't know if they can tell how much water is down there. But we are under conservation rules, for example. And I think we're under stage 3. I think it's stage 3 rules that are still in effect. So we can water our landscaping, for example, no more than twice a week. And it cannot be done 2 days in a row. It has to be split. And we have to water, the rule says, before 8 o'clock in the morning or after 8 o'clock in the evening. Now, before 8 o'clock, it was dark outside, even though we're under daylight saving time. I tell people early morning late morning, early evening, something like that. Before the sun goes down, or right around the time the sun goes down, that's when we can water. I haven't had to water because I changed my yard. I used to have a lawn, all lawn, and I took care of my lawn. I had a nice lawn, kept it green. I kept it cleaned, like I had a neighbor across the street. For the longest time, his yard was all crabgrass, and he wouldn't mow it until he got notices from the manager that he had to do something. It would get knee-high, the crabgrass, going to seed, and then he would go over it with a string trimmer to trim down all of the crabgrass. The seeds, of course, would be picked up by the air, go all over the place. I spent years digging crabgrass out of my front yard, but I did it, and I didn't complain. I kept my yard good. The side and the back were beautiful, clean, until the neighbor on the other side, she went into the hospital for an extended period, and her live-in boyfriend didn't take care of anything while she was in the hospital. A jungle of weeds grew up back there, and it just infiltrated my yard. I spent so much time digging up weeds that my yard looked like moon ground. It was all pockmarked with like craters and holes around. I was just constantly, I finally gave up. And what I did was I dug out all of my grass. Part of it was because of the drought, and part of it was because I just don't want to mow the lawn anymore. I dug out all the grass. I even sifted the soil to get the roots out so that the roots wouldn't lead to more grass growing up. and I replaced it with this stuff. This is natural sandstone. My whole yard, this is a tiny piece. This is a chip that broke off that I just saved it as a sample. Natural sandstone, and it's a thin one. Most of it was at least an inch thick. And some of the pieces, I would order it a pallet at a time, and a pallet could easily weigh a ton. And $6,000 I spent with stone. I bought 5 or 6 of these pallets, and some of them were huge, huge pieces. They were so big that it took 2 of us to move these pieces. And we could lay it down on a wooden dolly with wheels on it. I would roll it around to the part of the yard where we were going to put it in, and then we'd shift this thing and lay it down. I also learned how to cut stone, which was kind of fun, actually. You draw a line on the stone, and then with a chisel and a heavy hammer, you just keep hitting along that line, back and forth, back and forth. You might have to hit it 100 times or more, but eventually it'll fracture right along that line, and I could cut pieces that would just fit right in exactly where I needed them. It was actually kind of fun. I had to wear ear covering, though, because it was loud and it would really hurt my ears. So I had these ballistic grade ear coverings to protect my ears, so they'd keep them safe. And then what I did was I planted something called Diamondia. The common name for it is silver grass or something like that. It's a drought tolerant ground cover. Doesn't grow up like grass. Little leaves, grows very little as far as height goes. And if anything, it'll grow along the stone, so I have to trim it once in a while. But I planted that in between. Now, even though we're allowed to water twice a week, most of the time I don't have to water at all. Like it started raining here in October, and it's April right now. I haven't watered since September. Last time I watered was in September because we had enough rain that it would keep my Diamondia green. It's looking good. Silver carpet, that's what it's called. Silver carpet, that's the common name. Because when it needs to be watered, the leaves will kind of curl up and expose the silver underside, and that's when you know it's time to water. So easy. No lawn to mow. I gave my lawnmower away. It wasn't much good because the batteries, it was rechargeable. The batteries had to be replaced, so I just gave it away. I didn't, rather than bother to sell it. I was so happy to get rid of it. Haven't had to mow any lawn. It's been 2 or 3 years now since I've had my landscaping done. So that was one of the things that I did to save water here. Another thing that I did was I have a reverse osmosis water system under my sink. I actually have 2 filters on my home. Let me get to one first. I have outside a whole house water filter. So the water comes up from the pipe underground, and before it goes into my house, it passes through this whole house water filter. It's a big 20-inch filter outside, and that gets rid of particles, anything that's in the water. That's important. I want to show you what one of the filters looks like. It's this thing, 20-inch filter. This is still in the plastic, so it's a little bit shiny, but it's white. It's a white filter. Let me show you what the filter looks like after it's been filtering water for a couple of years. This is scary. Look at this. That's how bad it is. Now this is a different style. It has these kind of like paper things. That one actually works better. I think this is like 5 microns. That'll filter out particles as small as 1 micron. I had to look up on Google what is a micron because I wasn't sure what that did. A micron is 1/millionth of a meter, and in inches it's 4/100,000ths of an inch. Small, really small. This used to be white. This started off white. This is what was in there for a couple of years. Why does it look like this? Now our water, as I mentioned, it's groundwater. It's underground water, aquifer water. And it's kind of messy a little bit. The water that comes in from the county water board, our water is very good. We get a yearly report of the water because it's tested. How many millionths of a particle of this or whatever. There's all these measurements, and they make sure that everything is not only at safe levels, but most of the things that are in the water are well below what's required for the water to be safe. So why is it looking like that? Well, the problem is I live in a mobile home in a trailer park, and all that stuff that's collected in that filter, that comes from the pipes in the park. They're all underground galvanized pipe, and galvanized pipe rusts out after a while. I replaced all the galvanized pipe in my home. I had a plumber come in. They replaced it all with copper pipe because it was rusting and starting to break. We have 1 or 2 water breaks per year in the park. Just last week, I called the manager over because my neighbor's water, where the pipe was coming up from out of the ground, it was cracked and it was leaking. And I told him that's going to break off pretty soon. You might as well get it fixed. And he called the plumber. They came out the same day, and by the afternoon it was fixed. It only took him about 20 minutes. But the pipes in the park are bad. The owners know about it, but it's going to cost hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, to trench the entire park and replace all that pipe with proper clean pipe. I don't know when or if it'll ever be done, if it'll be done in my lifetime, but I don't want my water, I don't want this coming into my house. I don't want to be cooking with this. How scary is that? So I have this whole house water filter, and I should replace this about once a year. And after about a year, it'll look like that other one, because I saw my neighbor. He has the same one, and that's what his looks like. It looks all dark and rusty when it's time to be replaced. That's part of what I do to filter my water. I also have under my sink a reverse osmosis water filtration system. If you know anything about those, I'm sure you've heard that they are notorious for wasting water. If I have my numbers correctly, I looked it up, that for each gallon of water that it produces, 1 gallon of clean, safe drinking water that it produces, which I use for my coffee and my tea, it'll waste anywhere from 5 to 14 gallons of water. It's the water that passes through the system, and then there's a line that goes out and attaches to the drain. That's the wastewater line. So that's how much waste. For 1 gallon, it's wasting anywhere from 5 to 14 gallons just to give me 1 gallon of clean water. Well, I don't want to waste that water. I mean, no one's going to fine us for having a reverse osmosis system, but why waste the water? So what I did was I cut the wastewater line, and I put a T in there. So it's this T thing, and I added an extra hose, and it hangs out from my sink, and you can't see it because it's off camera, but what I have down there behind me is a 5-gallon bucket. It looks kind of funky, this big bucket sitting on my kitchen floor, but that captures all that wastewater. And then I take that wastewater outside and I water my plants. I have some herbs along the side over here in pots, and then I have 5 little citrus trees and big planters around my home. I don't use them for fruit. They do bear fruit, but they're not there for fruit. They're there as ornamentals. So I just use them to make the place look nice. Between my stone and my diamondia and the trees, this place looks pretty good for a trailer park. If I can boast a little bit, I have one of the best looking lots in the entire trailer park. I didn't do it because I wanted to have the prettiest lot in the park. I did it because it's easy to maintain. I don't have to mow any lawn. I don't have to water it very often. It's easy. So, and my trees, they look nice to have citrus trees out there. So that's what I do as far as saving water here in Southern California. Again, we're still under water conservation rules here, even though the lake is half full. I don't know if ever we will be released from those conservation rules, but I don't really care. As long as it doesn't get a lot worse, as long as I can have water to cook and wash with and flush the toilet and so forth, I'm okay. I conserve where I can. I do the best I can. I don't have to waste water on my landscaping. I do the best I can. So that's our water situation here, at least in this part of California.